These are the modern, state-of-the-art agricultural aviation pilots. Gone are the so-called crop dusters of the past. They have been replaced by turbine-powered, computer and avionic-controlled aircraft and highly technically trained and licensed aerial application pilots who control mosquitoes, patrol telephone lines, clean up oil spills, fight forest fires, plant seeds, fertilize and protect crops and trees, and apply desiccants to dry food crops and make them easier to harvest. Without agricultural aviation, food, lumber, wood, and paper products would be much more expensive for the consumer. Just as a tractor or truck is different than a car, an agricultural aircraft differs from a passenger airplane. They're built much stronger than regular airplanes, with emphasis on cockpit safety for the pilot. In addition to having a commercial pilot's license, agricultural pilots have commercial pesticide applicators licenses and are closely regulated by the State Department of Agriculture and the State Environmental Protection Agency. God bless the agricultural aviation pilots. Today, we're interviewing the president of the Agricultural Aviation Association. He is a noble person. As a matter of fact, his name is Dennis Noble. Would you tell our audience a little bit about the Agricultural Aviation Association?
Well, we're a group of professional ag pilots, and we use the association for training purposes and for regulatory issues to protect our freedom to fly. We're here today to show the public the professional manner in which we do our profession.
You have a responsible position in your profession.
Yes, we do.
Tell us a little bit about the history. When was aircraft first used for dusting?
It was started in 1929 by a military pilot back in the East. They had a problem with bugs eating up some trees, and they designed an early Jenny and put a spreader on it and put arsenic dust in the airplane and went out and dusted the trees for this insect, and it was a success. And it just took off.
And from there?
And from there it grew into what it is today.
Tell us a little bit about the history of between that first Jenny and what it is today, after 1929.
Well, after 1929, it slowly developed. The crop dusters would design their own equipment, basically. They'd take old biplanes and put larger engines on them, design hoppers to carry the materials in them, and they designed their own spreaders, their own spray booms, and everybody took the best ideas they had and gradually it's developed into where it is today.
Like a dune buggy. You don't go to Sears Roebuck and buy one, you have to make one.
You build your own, you design your own. Today we have companies that do. We're a large enough industry now that companies do design our equipment for us and build, good working equipment that we use today.
I fly an air coupe. The man who designed and created the air coupe also did something significant for your industry.
Yes, Fred White. He designed the first ag plane, the first commercial ag plane that was built by an actual factory and designed by true engineers, specifically to apply crop protection materials. He was the Flying Farmers Association in the early 50s commissioned him to work on the first airplane.
And today you're using GPS that's accurate to 3 feet, and you're using all sorts of sophisticated equipment. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Okay, today we're using turbine aircraft. These are actually small jet turboprops. We're into
turbojets or turboprops.
Turboprops. So we're using those today instead of the piston engines, and we're designing the airplanes to be better at applying the materials, better at forcing material into the fields. We're designing new spray booms and spray nozzles that will contain our material exactly to where we want it in the exact amount that we want it on the field.
As a souvenir of our visit today, we'd like to present you with this cap. It's an aviation theater cap, a gift from Flight Suits Limited and their leather jacket factory outlet, our aviation neighbors right across the street from Gillespie Airport.
Well, thank you. I fly with a Flight Suits Limited helmet, so this is great. Thank you very much.
Very good. You're welcome. And now, on to the air show. agricultural airplanes are used in firefighting. Horsepower engine. This one is a piston engine. Many of them are now turbojets, but this is a 600 horse. Many times lightning will hit one tree, and there's only one tree burning. So they send in a chopper with flame retardant, and they put out a fire on that one tree only. Pinpoint. Dennis Noble, the president, is here with me. Dennis, what is this guy going to do?
Okay, he just now, as you saw a few seconds ago, he took on a load of water. This is David Sear flying an Air Tractor 402. He's going to demonstrate the flight capabilities of the aircraft right now. He'll be going down into the airstrip and taking off, and as he gets permission from the air traffic controller, he'll demonstrate how the airplane sprays.
What are the flight characteristics of this airplane?
They're very good. I've flown the Air Tractor 401, which is a piston-powered aircraft, and then the 502. I also own the Air Tractor 502, which is a little larger version of that. But essentially, they all fly the same. They've got very nice handling characteristics. They're very well-balanced aircraft.
This is not a piston engine?
No, this is a turboprop engine, and the turboprop engine is a small jet engine turning a transmission, which reduces the jet engine speed down to propeller RPM. The jets...
So it's usable?
It's usable, yes, and it's very good horsepower on those, very responsive. The engine's a lot lighter than the piston engines also.
Now, you mentioned that he has to get permission from the tower. You guys are not used to messing with the tower.
No, very seldom we ever talk to anybody on the radios. We're out in the agricultural lands where there's no air traffic control. We work in Class D and E airspace. So
those are good classes.
Yes, they are.
You don't have to say, "Mother, may I," before you do everything.
No, we don't say "Mother, may I," and we don't have altitude restrictions unless we're flying over residential areas where we do comply with all the air traffic rules and when we're near towns.
Well, you guys wouldn't have any altitude restrictions anyway because you work about 3 feet above the ground.
Well, normally we don't always fly that low. Normally when we're spraying, our wheels are usually 5 feet above the ground. The spray bar is usually closer to 10 feet above the ground. We found in today's spray planes, it's better to fly just a little bit higher than having your wheels right in the crop to give the spray a little more of a chance to uniformly disperse over the crop.
What speed will he take off at?
This airplane will probably come off the ground. He'll come up off the ground about 80 miles an hour, and then he'll accelerate up to 120.
Does he cruise at 120?
Well, normally out in the field, today he's flying a little slower, I'm sure, because of the close confines. But out in the field, this particular aircraft will work at up to 140 miles an hour.
When he's dusting or spraying, what speed does he usually use?
It normally depends on the pilot's preference, but on this particular aircraft, he'll work between 130 and 140 miles an hour spraying.
That's fast.
Yes, it is. They're a lot faster in the days of the Stearman where the pilot was going 70 miles an hour.
Yes. Although a Stearman does everything at 70. I took an aerobatics course in a Stearman, and it climbs at 70, maneuvers at 70, dives at 70, lands at 70, but this one's almost double that.
Yes, and this thing will carry 3 times the load capability of the Stearman. So we've come a long ways, especially in the last 15, 20 years. The crop dusting industry has totally changed to a modern, very viable industry to the agricultural people.
Now, what is he doing now?
Right now he's spraying. He's showing the spray capabilities of the aircraft. You'll notice as you watch the spray, it lays down very flat and it goes right into the field. This is to show the people that when we spray a field, our spray goes right into the crop and no place else. In the older days on the older aircraft, we had problems controlling what we call the wingtip vortices, where the spray would actually pull up into large circles and go back up in the air, and they could possibly drift onto other crops where they could do damage or other harm.
But this visibly sinks right into the ground.
As you can see, as he's spraying, and notice the spray bar is about 10 feet above the ground. Look how the spray is lying very flat. It's a small, narrow pattern going flat right into the crop, if that were indeed a crop.
Now, the thing that surprised me, I guess I didn't realize, and our viewing public doesn't, that agricultural aircraft is used for forest fires and a number of other things.
Yes, they are. During the off-season, the aircraft, a lot of the people are carded with the Forest Service, and by carded that means they're licensed.
It means they're over 21, they can buy a beer.
Yes, sir, it does, and they're very qualified. And what they will do is they'll take out well, I don't know, I'm not sure what it's called today, but what most of the public are familiar with, borate bombing. They'll take out the fertilizer-type fire extinguisher, and they'll bomb it onto the fire target and put the fires out. Again, you can see the spray pattern again. It's laying right into if that were a crop.
I also see the chandelle that he does.
Yes, these airplanes today are very maneuverable, a lot more maneuverable than planes in the past. You make your money going across the field, not in the turns.
So you make your turn as little as possible and as fast as possible.
As efficiently and as safely as possible.
Efficiently and safely.
Safety being the number one term. We are a very safe industry. We do not take chances at anything anymore. These airplanes, this airplane here is a $500,000 airplane, and we don't take chances with that type of an expense out there.
I can understand that.
You'll notice he's coming in now. This airplane also has reverse capability. I'm not sure if he'll use it.
Yes. Well, being a jet engine, yes.
He's in reverse now.
He reversed it just like a jet liner.
He may actually indeed back the aircraft up.
Yes, in reverse. We saw the Fat Albert do that at the Miramar Air Show.
Yes. Well, this is to show the capability of the aircraft itself. A lot of times coming into short strips, it's very hard if you're flying off of short strips to make landings all day long. You could actually damage your brakes. So having a reverse capability, it adds to the safety and the performance of the aircraft.
One of the things I was impressed with is that your industry, your association, is a responsible and dedicated business.
Yes, we are. You know, there's a perception that the crop duster out there is the old type, I don't know, barnstormer that is totally unprofessional, and that is not true. Today's aerial applicator, crop duster, whatever you prefer to call him, is a professional person who has been highly trained, is licensed with a commercial license. He's also licensed through the states and the federal government. And we do things in the best, most safe way within EPA guidelines that we can.
It's very quiet.
You'll also notice, too, that one of the major complaints in the past has been, I think what gets a lot of the public upset, is they're watching their Sunday afternoon football game and some crop duster comes over with blowing the windows out. These new turboprop aircraft are quiet in the air. They're a little noisy on the ground at times, but overall in the air we never seem to get noise complaints with the new turboprop aircraft.
Very impressive. On here?
Okay, this is a helicopter that belongs to San Joaquin Helicopters in Delano, California. The pilots now are going to demonstrate the spray capabilities of the helicopter. This helicopter was used extensively in the Vietnam War. It's better known as the Huey. This particular model has a larger engine, putting out about 200 more horsepower than the ones used during the Vietnam War.
Why was he sitting on the truck?
Normally the helicopters will load on top of the truck. It's easier and it's safer for most jobs to load on the truck and then take off and fly the fields.
Oh, he just sits down right on top of the truck and loads up.
Yes, he does. A lot of times, if you're sitting on the ground, you can get what they call FOD in these engines. These are jet engines. FOD is foreign object damage. You also stir up so much dust it's hard to work around them. So normally the helicopter operations will load on the trucks.
And what is he going to do?
As you can see now, he's spraying. Now notice again, what you were looking at the spray. It's laying very flat and it's down into the field. Helicopters also have an enhanced capability of pushing the material directly into the crop itself. They're used extensively in trees and in areas where there's, you notice that fast turnaround. That helicopter can turn around in just less than 100 yards. With that turning capability, when we get around residential areas, housing districts, and areas that are sensitive to the aircraft themselves, we use helicopters to avoid having complaints from our neighbors.
He doesn't have any trouble making turns at all.
No, he doesn't. There's a very highly experienced pilot. I'm not sure which pilot it is from San Joaquin Helicopters right now, but both pilots have around 12,500 hours of flight time on these machines. So they're highly trained, highly professional pilots. Both pilots that fly for this particular outfit flew during the Vietnam War.
They could qualify for an airline with those kinds of hours.
No problem. They have all the certificates to fly for an airline. In fact, I think at one time the San Joaquin Helicopters had a Part 135 operation in effect. Part 135 being transport of passengers. This particular aircraft is owned by Frontier Aircraft in Calexico, California. Byron Nelson, our last year's president of the CAAA, owns these airplanes. This is the Air Tractor 301.
Now he has a different kind of a hopper underneath his plane.
Yeah, this is for putting on this particular spreader. This is called a spreader. And this is used for spreading seed and fertilizer.
So you can actually do the whole farming process by airplane.
The only thing we can't do is pull a disc or a plow.
Art Linkletter, who used to have the TV program People Are Funny, said that he made an investment in Australia and they were going to drop seeds by airplane, but in his case, he said the ducks ate it on the way down.
I can believe that. In Northern California, where we do grow rice, the ducks are very thick indeed. But we do grow wild rice in the Northern California area.
Now the front airplane has a spreader and the back airplane has a sprayer, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. The front airplane has a spreader underneath and the second airplane has a spray boom underneath. The front airplane applies dry materials such as fertilizer and seed and in some cases granular herbicides. The second airplane can apply foliar fertilizers, and it can also apply pesticides such as herbicides, insecticides, or fungicides.
Now I use a liquid fertilizer around my house. Could you use liquid fertilizer in your sprayers?
Yes, we do. We call these foliar feeds, and we do apply liquid fertilizers. Oftentimes we'll mix it with other materials and apply it in conjunction. The noise you just heard was the sound of a World War II trainer taking off. That engine that's on that airplane is off a World War II North American AT-6. It's called...
No. SNJ.
If you're a Navy man, it's called an SNJ. If you're Army Air Force, you call it an AT-6. If you're Canadian, you call it a Harvard. But anyhow, now this...
Or all of the above.
Or all of the above. And this aircraft is also... It's a Pratt & Whitney R1340 engine running the Hamilton Standard 12D40 propeller.
Again, the man who built the air coupe worked for Hamilton, and he invented the variable pitch propeller also.
Yes, he did. Fred Whitey developed this, and he was all through the aircraft history. You'll find where Fred Whitey has made major changes in the aircraft industry. He's really contributed a lot over his time.
I had the honor of being his guest a couple of years ago when he received the Guggenheim Medal. He joined Orville Wright, Charles Lindbergh, and Jimmy Doolittle in being recipient of that award.
That's wonderful. I sure feel he deserves it because he has contributed a lot to the ag industry. As we talked earlier, the Flying Farmers Association 50 years ago.
Okay, right, real fast, what's he doing now?
This particular airplane now is demonstrating flying a seed or a fertilizer application. Notice that he flies a little higher in this configuration than he would if he were actually applying spray.
Now, you said the Flying Farmers 50 years ago.
Flying Farmers 50 years ago contributed and built up a fund to design the modern day aerial ag plane. And Fred Whitey was a major designer of today's airplanes.
Now this is the sprayer coming in.
Yes, this is a sprayer coming in. You notice it'll have a spray boom on the trailing edge of the airplane. And he's going to demonstrate a spray pass. Actually, right now he's flying a little higher since he isn't actually spraying, but they are just demonstrating the capability of the airplane. Oh, the old Pratt & Whitney R1340 sure sounds pretty, doesn't it? That's a beautiful sound.
It's the same airplane, whether you put, you get your airplane and then you put a jet engine or a piston engine or whatever kind of engine you want on it, but it's basically the same airplane.
Yeah, some companies will have one model. The Weatherly airplane that we interviewed in front of at the start of the show was running the Pratt & Whitney R985, which is called the Junior Wasp, which is the little brother of this engine here, the 1340. And he builds that airplane with only that engine. Now, Air Tractor has several different models of aircraft, and they run the R1340, which would today's airplane be called the 401. And on their other aircraft, they'll run the PT6-27 on their AT502.
Why would you use a different size engine, a small engine or a large engine?
Okay, a lot of crop dusters in different areas have different size fields and different missions to perform. Some areas are extensively smaller fields, and you don't need the larger aircraft to fly the fields. So it's up to each individual operator to decide which airplane best fits his needs, and he'll select the size airplane he needs for that mission.
So if you moved or got a different contract, you may have to pull the engine.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't pull the engine, but you might want to get a larger airframe. And if indeed you did buy just strictly the airframe alone, you would take your engine and put it on a larger airframe if you had a spare engine.
Well, let's say that you had a small engine, and you were doing, I don't know, 20 or 30 small farmers. And then all of a sudden you got a contract for General Mills or Campbell's Soup or I don't know what, something like that, and you needed a bigger engine. Wouldn't you pull the engine?
No, I'd go to a larger airframe and use the engine that was designed specifically for that airframe. So you might have misunderstood me. We'll use larger airframes for larger fields and larger jobs with larger engines, and smaller airframes with smaller engines for smaller fields.
Oh, so you would keep the same engine and get a larger airframe?
Not necessarily. Like I said, the Weatherly aircraft that we interviewed in front of earlier is a smaller airframe. It has a 335-gallon hopper in it, and he can get by with the 450 horse R985 made by Pratt & Whitney. This aircraft here has close to a 400-gallon hopper, so he'll need a little more horsepower to carry that additional weight of the larger hopper, and his aircraft uses the Pratt & Whitney R1340 600 horsepower engine.
Is this a 450 horse here?
No, this is a 600 horse engine here.
That's a big one.
Yes, it is. That's when I say R1340, it has 1,340 cubic inches, and it'll put out 600 horsepower.
This is Frank Kimmel. He's going to be our pilot for today, demonstrating the GPS system. He's going to fly with us, even though he's a cowboy from Oklahoma State, and I'm a tiger from the University of Missouri. We're going to fly together. Frank has a famous relative I need to tell you about. It's Admiral Kimmel, who was an unsung hero at Pearl Harbor. Now, Frank is going to take us flying in the Cessna 206 and demonstrate the GPS system that they use for swath control. And here we go on takeoff.
Just a left turn.
This is the SatLock GPS. Our pilot punches in the desired information on the computer keyboard, and the guidance system sets up the direction, the length, and the width of each pass, which is called a swath. On this particular flight, we are told to turn right 19 feet to a heading of 290 degrees to be on course.
290 degrees.
These GPS systems are accurate to 3 feet anywhere in the world. With them, agricultural pilots can pinpoint their aerial applications without affecting contiguous areas either day or night.